All right, everybody. My guest here on the Tuesday edition of Wiregrass Daily News Sports is my compadre on Friday nights. The guys I send it to call the Dothan Wolves games, the voice of the Dothan Wolves. Dothan Wolves play-by-play broadcaster on 96.9 The Legend, Jerry Coleman. Jerry, I appreciate you coming on and jumping on the pod.
Yeah, always good to get on the pod with and definitely talk Dothan Wolves football.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Where everybody's used to hear you and Ken call the games on Friday nights, and then of course with the coaches show on Thursday night. So a little bit maybe different layout here. Getting your thoughts and opinions. And wow, what a game Friday night! Beating Enterprise, and that was a long time coming. They asked the Dothan Wolves their second time beating Enterprise, beat them year one. This was their first time beating them as a 7A opponent. It was a non-region because Dothan was 6A that first year. But coming in and going to Enterprise, getting that big win, just your overall thoughts on the performance from the Dothan Wolves on Friday night.
Well, if you was able to listen in, the first thing was it's kind of a quiet moment, unlike most places that we played at. We were expecting a good crowd. Finally, it did show up. Enterprise Stadium is one of those. There's only two ways in and two ways out. And unlike Rip Hughes, where you've got a lot of ways to get in, but of course when you get in and get parked, you can get in the stadium pretty easy. But yeah, I think it started off with kind of the toss of the coin. We won, and Coach Kennedy decided to, wait to the second half, and so we knew right then. And all week we were talking about not sure what quarterback we may see. Axton, their starter from the first year, got concussion against Central Phoenix City and was out 3 or 4 weeks. Played a half last week against Prattville, but I went out to practice early in the week. I was off and able to go out and watch it, and they kind of worked on seeing Eric Winters, who's a big kid, kind of took the ham as quarterback um, when Axton went out. And then we started out with Winters came out first. Second series was Axton. Third series was Winters. Fourth series was Axton. And we could see a pattern going on when Eric Winters in the game. It's mostly a run game with Dunlap and Griffin and Winters back there running the football. But when Axton come in, it kind of gave up. Um, Pretty much just runs tackle to tackle and throwing the ball. But of course we scored. I think halfway through the first quarter, we went in halftime 7-0, and you could tell. And Ken and I talked a little bit about it on the broadcast. Kind of a momentum change in the third quarter. Kind of leading out with the offense. Kind of started clicking for Enterprise. But just looking back at it, Enterprise did not cross the 50 until the second half.
Mm.
So it was kind of interesting to see that. Um, Enterprise got a good ball team. It was probably one of the most physical games, both sides of the ball, that we've seen all year. Score reflected it. Definitely a defensive battle. Coach Blackman had, I think, 9 returning defensive players from last year, and but that was a strength of them. We had a hard time running tackle to tackle, but then Alexander had a big run. We had some short passes to Corbett, and then before we looked up though, it's tied 14-14. And then that one play that Coach Kennedy and Coach Jones, Coach Hanson put in this week was that double pass that got Corbett wide open. So Barnes was able to connect with Corbett for that big run, but it left 4.5 minutes on the clock. And Coach Blackman did a good job of keeping all his timeouts. So was kind of wondering when was he going to start using those timeouts.
Yeah, and really, it was like most of the game. It was a defensive game, as you said, and then the fourth quarter happened, and points and big plays, explosions, and everything. But that first half, I mean, and then the defense. I mean, neither team. I think there were 7 punts were in the first half. 10 possessions between the two teams, 7 punts. But Dothan gets on the board early with Marion Peterson handing it off to AJ Alexander for that 45-yard touchdown. That was like late into the first quarter. I think there was 38 seconds
Mm-hmm.
left, and that was big. Just kind of carrying it through the whole first half. Like, what were you and Ken too seeing like there in that first half? Just the defensive struggle that it was.
Well, I think Fred Veely, which is a big defensive lineman uh, for Enterprise, we kept an eye on him all night. Coach kind of gave us a kind of somebody to keep an eye on him and JT Hooten. Uh, and he always went to the strong side of the field. Now, probably don't know it, and we've probably not doing a good job of calling it, but with Jamal Ryle out, they've moved Anthony Castillo kind of in that blocking back position. So it adds a little beef over there on that strong side of that single wing. And the blocking techniques are there, but we just ran into another defense, kind of like Central Phoenix City of last week, where they just kind of box it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Enterprise is not only strong physically, they're also fast. So unlike some teams where you got an AJ Alexander or Tamarian Peterson that can get outside, that was a struggle, and it was a defensive battle. And I think from the coach's booth right below us, they were looking for opportunities to get that little quick pass across the middle. And unlike last week too, Phillip, Central Phoenix City very physical. So Sam Broadway really didn't have a lot of time to make a decision in the pocket. Offensive did a great job. Offensive line did a great job Friday night in giving him some time to look at his leads, look at his opportunities.
He had a big throw too there in the second half. Dothan went on a 66-yard drive. That third and long to Donovan Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Really big play. Of course, AJ Alexander capitalized on that. And it seemed like, with Broadway too, first year starter, he's really each week it feels like he's getting better at that too. Overall,
Well,
as a quarterback.
you're talking about a kid last year was a true freshman, kind
Mm-hmm.
of came in and you know how tough our region is. I mean, probably toughest in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to get in some games last year. But in a period of a year, Phillip, this kid has gotten stronger, gotten faster, and gotten smarter. And not only that, I mean, the team picks the captains. And I don't ever remember a sophomore being voted in as a captain amongst his peers. So that tells you a little bit about his leadership skills. But so we were able to bring in this year some more threats, throwing the ball down the field. Last year it was Raymond Blackman and Tamarian Peterson. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was it. That was the big runs last year. With that, this year you add Jane Barnes, you're adding Jalen Corbett, and Donovan Jones that can get down the field, and with that beefy line that we have now, gives the arm strength now that you see from Sam Broadway.
Yeah, and on the other side, and I got to thinking about this actually as we're having this conversation. This is a game going into it where Dothan has some experience because you mentioned the two quarterbacks. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they dealt with that against Auburn. And I remember Coach talking about on the coach show after they prepare for both of them as if one of them started. I'm sure it was the exact same thing as you mentioned here. And then with Eric Winters, he had that big touchdown run, tied the game at 14. And then Dothan comes out with their possession that leads to the win. The double pass, just for you going into the play before it happened. Trust me, if anybody was listening on 96.9 The Legend, which they should have, and they should listen every Friday when Dothan was playing, the excitement come out of your voice. How did it look as it was developing, on the field for the people who maybe didn't see it, only listened to the radio call, but for someone that had their eyes on it?
Well, we didn't bring it up to probably late in the fourth quarter, but it seemed like the ball was on Enterprise's hash side the whole second half. So it was placed at the middle of the field, and not really a change in the format in the forecast. We had kind of Jaden in the slot, Barnes at the wide receiver, and he just took a step up or two. Broadway stepped enough about 5 feet back to make sure it was a forward pass, and it wasn't a fake to bring up the safety or anything. So I think when they saw the pass, it broke where Corbett could get a little bit of separation between him and the guy behind him. But we'd seen Barnes throw the ball a little bit during the year, kind of short passes, but nothing like he threw. And of course, it happened on Enterprise's sideline. So they just probably looked up and said, if it was a perfect pass right in stride, and to the point to where the safety broke just enough toward the line of scrimmage to get caught. But it was a foot race for Corbett to make it to the end zone.
Yeah,
But
I know.
it was an exciting play. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just hearing it, I'm in the studio, hearing the call. It was an exciting moment, a big moment of the season. I think after the season is over, however it does end, we'll look back at the Enterprise game and perhaps that moment as one of the key moments of the season. But reading the Dothan Eagle, Coach Kennedy did put, we saw the safety trigger in all night. So that was kind of like one of them setup plays. Like you don't do that early. You have to do it almost kind of late in that moment when you kind of lull them in. It's okay. This is a run play. This is a run play. And the way Dothan plays, running it as much as they do, boom, over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was kind of set up that way because, like we said, they loaded the box, and Enterprise got a big defensive line, very physical linebackers. So we were able to get 2 or 3 yards running between tackle to tackle, uh, and that's one reason I think why Peterson has had a great year and will continue to have a great year, but just wasn't getting any momentum, and that's why we saw Alexander back there at that running back position where normally he's kind of in that single wing, but was able to kind of find a crease. And AJ's not a big kid, but he's gutsy and he's
Mhm.
strong and he's physical, and he has a big heart. And so you saw a change there, and because of that, and Peterson's speed didn't take him out; he put him outside the slot. So a few times we saw uh, throughout the year, Broadway in the backfield, kind of in the shotgun. Peterson's on the sidelines, and we've got 3 true receivers out there. Well, now he's using Peterson also out there as kind of a wideout. So
Yeah, and quarterback Sam Broadway, also from the Dothan Eagle, talked about they put the play in this week. So, and he talked about, and I'm paraphrasing, this is not word for word from the quote, they're just waiting for the right time. And like we said, that was
Well,
it on
we
that one.
talked about it on the coach's show. Ken asked a question last week. We're kind of seeing a play here or there that we hadn't seen all year,
Mhm.
and kind of off record, he says, "Well, wait till Friday night." So the opportune time come at the right time, uh, and know that we now have that play in the arsenal. But going back to defense, I was looking at the stats that we kind of talked about yesterday. Total yardage for Dothan was only 285. Enterprise had 299. We had 37 plays. Enterprise had 50. So it was didn't have the ball much, but we capitalized on it when we had it. And I tell you what, special teams with Wesley Farmer, it is a game winner. I mean,
Mhm.
when you got speed, he puts it in the end zone. He struggled last week punting. He didn't struggle at all Friday night at Enterprise. I mean, he put it where he needed it, never kicked anything short, and it definitely turned the field and changed the game up a lot.
Yeah, this is I think on the game, and we kind of look forward for the rest of the season for Dothan in
Yeah,
7A Region 2. It was a clean game pretty much for Dothan. No turnovers on their side. Enterprise I think that the quarterback's a little sloppy with the ball at times. They didn't lose every fumble, but they had a couple fumbles in there, kind of
right,
drive killers on their side. So, and that was another thing for Dothan. Like, yeah, the plays and the yardage may not be where they want it, but a clean game. They didn't really do anything in the game to hurt themselves.
right. Broadway never threw an interception. I think there were 3 fumbles by Enterprise. We recovered one of those. But I think Enterprise had a lot of penalties. We had some penalties. I know talking to Jed, Coach Kennedy this weekend, that there's a few things to be cleaned up. And when you get in a game like that, I mean, like the first play we got the ball, it was a offensive line move, and it's 1st and 15. And you're thinking, okay, and they just made a shift. Defense has just made a shift, and we jumped off. So that's one thing I think that'll be cleaned up. Getting ready for got a week off. Nobody's really hurt, and we the 4th game of the 4th travel week, we go to Opelika and play the Bulldogs. which
Yeah,
is
I'm
another
pretty
regional
sure.
game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you and Ken are excited to be back at Ripview Stadium in a couple weeks.
Well, we got one more road trip, and then we get to come back home.
That's it. So, you know, and just looking at so obviously off this week, and then you go to Opelika, who's also in the thick of the playoff race. It's really a 5-team race for 4 spots, and really 4 for 3 because you can pretty much say it was Central. I mean, it's easy to assume they have number one wrapped up. They are the first only team in the region to clinch a playoff spot. Now, no surprise, Jag High School and Smith Station, they are the only two that are officially eliminated. So Percy, Julian, Prattville, there's mathematics out there, Jerry. We're not going to get into them here that they could
Sure.
somehow still get in. But anyways, you've got pretty much Auburn, Enterprise, Opelika, and Dothan, 2 through 5, all fighting for spots. I mean, Auburn's got the one loss. They play Central this weekend, and then you got Enterprise. They're 3-2. Then Opelika and Dothan, they're both 4-2. So that matchup in a few weeks when Dothan comes off the off week is going to be pretty big.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot clearer, I think, next week of kind of what the picture looks like of who's going to be really 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think you'll have, in my opinion, 3 teams this time next week juggling for who's going to be 2, who's going to be 3, who's going to be 4, and you won't be able to really know that for another week. You know, because a lot of things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can end up with a 3-way tie with Enterprise, Dothan, and Auburn, and we can talk about that later. What that may look at, but you still got some games to play. We've got 2 regional games. Some of the other schools have 3, and Central Phoenix City only has a 9-game schedule this week, so they'll have 2 weeks off. They've already taken 1, and the last week when we play Jack and Dothan, Central will be off again. So they only had 9 games this season.
Yeah, for who out here are not aware, Jag used to be Jeff Davis. Just
Yeah.
kind of just clear that up. He'll say, "Who's Jag High School?" You know, because maybe all people just in that Dothan bubble, they don't know what's going on with the other teams. Look, Opelika and Enterprise play this Friday, so that's a big one there. I mean,
Actually,
whoever
they
loses,
played this Thursday. They
that's
played
right.
Thursday night. I talked to their broadcast team as we were leaving Friday night, saying, "Hey, why Thursday? Because you're playing Enterprise. It's not like you have to go to Montgomery or anything." And he said, with I think Coach Blackman with the officiating uh, limitations, and that's number of bodies and officials, you can kind of get a group on Thursday that's not calling somewhere else on a Friday. So that's a Thursday game, and you're thinking, okay, it's kind of like, let's say Alabama, they take off the week before they play LSU. Well, Enterprise will play Opelika, and then they play Jag. So they'll have 7 days to get ready for them, but they only got 4 days to get ready for Opelika Bulldogs. So,
yes,
and
yeah,
one thing too, if you listen to the broadcast or watched it, Marion Griffin, who's number 3 for Enterprise, almost caught a ball, or he caught a ball that was wide open in the field. It would have really put a wrinkle in if he'd scored towards ACL. So Enterprise is going to go in the rest of the season without one of their key running backs.
Yeah, that's a big blow because even if you just like read the paper and you just
Mm-hmm.
see what Enterprise does, his name is there every week. That's a name you can kind of rely on, Enterprise. So that's going to be big. And going in, and with Opelika, you look at their overall schedule, their record, they're 4-4. But then you look, okay, they're 4-2. That's a tough team. I mean, that was a tough game last year with Dothan when they came to Dothan. I mean, that was a playoff game basically, 1-2 played. So it'll be interesting with that. And with Dothan just, this off week too, you mentioned it, some of the things that Coach Kennedy might want to clean up. How do you think he approaches the off week?
Well, it's kind of like a game or 2 before that was a big game we won. He gave him off Sunday and Monday. So I believe this week he'll give him off Sunday and Monday for sure. Probably soft this week, probably getting pads maybe Thursday. I know that some of the team and definitely the coaches, since Opelika is going to Enterprise, would definitely want to go that game. But I think they'll put in more of a game plan probably the first of the week. Really nobody hurt, so the physical game Friday night, some folks got banged up, but nothing that's really going to hold them out. But I think it'll be kind of soft this week, and then get back in it next week, hard and heavy.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. I'm sure they're looking forward to the off week, and then you got the stretch run of the final two games, and we get to take a little break too as well on Friday night, and just kind of do whatever we want to do on a Friday. But Jerry, it's been fun having you in this format, chatting with you. For people who don't know, we and Jerry we chat like off the air and stuff during the broadcast and throughout the week and stuff like that. But this is kind of like a look inside those conversations. But Jerry, any final words before we get out of here?
Well, Dothan's had a great year. Coach Kennedy last year was kind of uh, given a good team, but kind of one dimensional. And
Hmm.
and with a year behind his back, you can see now that Dothan is more balanced. Last year was more of a running game. This year is more of a balance. I mean, you have to keep intact that you got a Sam Broadway, you got a Corbett, you got a Jones that can get down the field and catch football. So that kind of gives them more of a mixed offense. Defense, I mean, uh, Coach Cilaroni and them have probably only given up. Now, of course, we won't talk about Central, but 9, 10, 12 points a game defensively,
Hmm.
and it's really a young team. So it's things to come. It's going to be a good future, I think, for Dothan Wolves, not only this year but actually in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Future's bright for Dothan Wolves. But it's going to be, again, a good off week. Jerry, I hope you enjoy the off week. You get to rest the voice up and get ready for these two big games to close it out. And once again, I do appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Wiregrass Daily News Sports. You can find the podcast over at wiregrassdailynews.com or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you just leave 4 stars, you are just a straight up hater. You can follow me on social media over at PJordanSEC. You can email me at sportstalkphillipjordan at gmail.com. Awesome conversation there with Jerry Coleman, the play-by-play voice of the Dothan Wolves on 96.9, The Legend. When the Dothan Wolves do return on the field on October 27th, make sure to listen to us that night when they go to Opelika for the final road game of the regular season. Of course, the Coaches Show will be back on October 26th. Also, let's jump into some news real quickly and we're going to get out of here. We're not going to go 45 minutes like we did on Monday's show. Brock Bowers, the latest news on him. I gave you that info a little bit on Monday's show that he got injured against Vanderbilt. Looked like an ankle injury. That's what it is. It looks like he could be out 3 to 6 weeks due to surgery. Some are speculating the tightrope surgery to repair that ankle. And you're just looking ahead what Georgia has coming up. They're off this week, and then the following week on the 28th, they do play Florida. And I want to call it that. Somebody may get mad. I don't know. They don't want us calling it this anymore, but the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Then they will play Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and close out the season with Georgia Tech. So when you look at who could beat Georgia without Brock Bowers, see, Missouri gave them a good game last year, but that was in Missouri. Ole Miss would be interesting with their offense. Um, Florida's played well, better than I thought they would. Graham Mertz has played really well at the quarterback position for Florida. Georgia Tech, I don't think, is much of a threat even without Brock Bowers. So we'll see. See how much the offense is going to change because he's a big part of the offense. He is a safety net for quarterback Carson Beck. We saw that against Auburn in the second half. Whenever there was a big 3rd and 10 play, we knew who Beck was going to. He was going to look for Brock Bowers. So now tight end Oscar Delt, sophomore, will have to step up. And we'll see how he does. He has 13 catches on the year for 160 and 2 touchdowns. Now, Brock Bowers on the year, 41 catches, 567 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The other receivers for Georgia, they're going to have to step up. Rara Thomas, Dominic Lovett, Ladd McConkey, the whole group. These guys are going to step up. I think Ladd is one that you could rely on to be that safety net now. For Beck, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. When be very interesting to see how the offense looks without Brock Bowers, because we know Georgia has plenty of talented players, but offensively, we know where the number one guy is, and that is Brock Bowers. Now, the AP Top 25 in basketball, the first poll came out. We're just a few weeks away from basketball season, and we will get more into college basketball on one episode of the show next week. This week, Wednesday and Thursday, is SEC basketball media days. We won't jump into that much. Maybe some news comes out of it, especially with Alabama and Auburn. We'll jump into that. But outside of that, not much this week, but next week I plan in diving deep into some SEC basketball and whatever the news and everything we hear about from SEC basketball media days. But the top 10 is Kansas at number 1, Duke at 2, Purdue at 3, Michigan State comes in at 4, Marquette at 5, UConn at 6, Houston at 7, Creighton at 8, Tennessee, the first SEC team in the top 25. At number 9, there's Tennessee, and 10 is FAU. Other SEC teams, you'll have Arkansas at 14, Texas A&M at 15, Kentucky at 16. Future SEC team, Texas comes in at 18. Of course, they're still in the Big 12 for this year. And then Alabama comes in at 24. See what Nate Oates has planned for this year's Alabama team. Receiving votes, I'm shocked Auburn is not ranked, but look, they'll have the opportunities to play their way into the top 25. Auburn received 27 votes. Mississippi State got 20. Missouri got 6. And Florida got 2. So that is your preseason top 25 poll for basketball. And that's going to do it for this edition of Wiregrass Daily News Sports. Hope everybody enjoyed that conversation with Jerry Coleman. Tomorrow, I will be joined by Tide Illustrated managing editor Tony Sakalis. We will talk all things Alabama, look back at Arkansas game, review some thoughts Tony has from what Nick Saban said in his press conference on Monday, and we will preview the big rivalry game with Tennessee. That is this Saturday. And I'll go and let you know what's going on Thursday. Jared Reddy, he covers Ole Miss for 247 Sports. He will be on with me to preview Auburn and Ole Miss. And, of course, Matt Lowe will be on Friday. So we've got you covered this week. Great guests, great conversation are coming your direction. Well, anyways, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I hope everybody has a great Tuesday, and I will talk to you tomorrow.